Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Dean Phelps. I am the Director of Product Enhancement here at Saran Systems. It produces CDM Plus. Appreciate you all being here and joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about emailing contribution statements. Let's go ahead then and get started. What we do to email a contribution statement is we generate a PDF of the statement for a giving unit, just like we would for printed contribution statements. Then we attach that to an email notice and send that out. So I won't spend a lot of time covering the formatting of contribution statements in this particular webinar. I will touch a little bit on the formatting and what the various tabs of the report window do, but won't really go in depth. Let's dive right into it. So let me switch my screen sharing up here. All right, so hopefully now you're seeing an image of my screen, my desktop wallpaper with the CDM menu up here at the top. The main engine that drives the ability to email contribution statements is actually found on the giving unit record. So we're going to start there. So I'm going to open up Program, Contributions, and bring up giving unit records. Bring that in. And I'm going to search for just a limited number of these, specifically the ones where the indication to email the statement is equal to yes. So I've got that query built in my search bar. I click Find. And we'll just take a look at the giving unit for Charles and Ruby Cook here. So the very first piece of being able to email a statement to your donors is this checkbox here underneath the name information that says, basically checking this on says this donor, this giving unit wants to receive their contribution statements by email. And then the other piece of it on the giving unit record, you see here we have the email tab. What we have to do is somehow tell CDM Plus what email address or addresses to send this contribution statement to. That's what's on the email tab. What we do here is we see the email addresses, the email addresses that are associated with this giving unit. Right now we have Charlie Cook at earthlink.net selected for this giving unit to receive a contribution statement. If I needed to change that, then like with any other change in CDM Plus, I click the Change button. Check, well, Ruby wants to get a copy of the contribution statement as well. I'm going to click Save. So now this is what we need to do on the giving unit record. Here on the email tab, we have indicated what email addresses for this giving unit are to receive the email contribution statement. And over here on the information tab is where we have indicated that this donor, this giving unit, wants to receive their contribution statements by email. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Next, we just need to go to Reports, bring up on Contribution Reports, Statements and Receipts. Then I have both of the formats of the contribution statement, both the contribution statement that can be formatted with columns, or the one that breaks down each contribution on the same line, the contribution statement line report. Both of those have an email counterpart. So I'm going to choose first just the contribution statements email. And that opens up this contribution statements email window. Now notice I don't have a preview pane over here like I do on a lot of my report windows, because we're going to send this by email. There's not a printed report to preview. I don't have the destination buttons that I would usually have. The destination I have for this is to send an email. But a lot of this already looks like the report window that you'd open if you were just going to print contribution statements. So I have a search tab where I put in the standard search information that I'm going to use. I'm going to do this for contributions for 2018. So I've got my date range at January 1st to December 31st, 2018. For sake of this demonstration, we're going to use all giving funds and all events and all payment types. Certainly you can select and filter down, choose things to be included or excluded. The key difference that we're going to see is what we need to do is generate an email notice in CDM Plus that we're then going to attach a PDF of the contribution statement to. If you're not familiar with using notices, I would recommend that you go to this website, kb.cdmplus.com. That's where our online manuals are stored. And there's a good section in those manuals on using email notices. So remember that for kb.cdmplus.com. I'm not going to go into detail about how to produce or generate notices here. That's beyond the scope of what I intended to do. But I actually set up that notice. What is the message that's going to go along with the email? That's set up here on the Notice tab of the report window. So you can see I've actually already prepared a notice. It's going to go out with the subject 2018 giving statement. And I can click the change button down here and we can see the body of the message that's going to be sent. Again, this looks like the notices window that you'd see for any other email notice. I'm pulling in a date in this long date format, bringing in the giving unit salutation name so that it's this, in the giving unit that we looked at, it would say, Dear Charles and Ruby, and then just a quick little piece of information about the attachment that's going to be there. So whatever this message needs to be coming from your church or your organization, you set that up on this notice. Again, remember what we're going to do here is build an email notice to the donor, attach the contribution statement to it as a PDF, and then email that to the donor. I'll close the notice. Then down here on the report tab, again, now we're going to see things that look very much like what we see for the printed contribution statements. So you can see in giving unit selection, I'm able to print just a subset. I could select a range of giving unit codes. For example, if I'm just going to print those for 100 through 199. And remember that I'm only going to print these for giving units where that email statement checkbox has been checked over on the giving unit record. So I'm kind of narrowing down by the date that was on the search tab, now by this range of giving units. I can choose to include inactive giving units. Here again, I would be looking for that email statement checkbox to also be on. Because this is the contribution statements format as opposed to contribution statements line, I could choose to break the gifts down by columns. So I could have a column for general fund, I could have a column for building fund, and then let the program put in have a column for other. The format tab gives me information about what goes on the header. Do I want to include any of the entry memo information? Do I want to include the memorials or notes information? Do I want to print the date range on the field? When I print the total, do I want to include funds that are active but that this particular donor may not have given to? Do I want to include funds with that zero amount? I'm going to leave that one unchecked. How do I want the giving unit name to appear? Am I going to use quarterly totals? Do I want to print totals only? Again, how do I want this information to appear? Now, as you're checking your formatting, what you may want to do is start by printing a few samples, not using the email format, but just using the contribution statements or contribution statements line, or even the contribution statement report. Again, just to get a look at how you want this formatted, make sure you get it the way you want it before we fire off the emails to everybody. So you might want to work with some of these. Am I going to show the pledge information for pledged funds? So what kind of message do I want to include on the contribution statement? That's here on the Messages tab. Thank you for your faithful support. That's somebody that has given. I can also print contribution statements for people that haven't given, and I would put a different message on there. In this case, please consider financially supporting the work of First Community Church in our community and the world. The contribution statement will give subtotals for contributions that are tax deductible and those that are not tax deductible. How do we want those labeled? Again, that's at your discretion. How that is presented, you do that there. Alignment is available on the contribution statements and contribution statements line email formats. This exists on the printed format because we can use this to line up the organization address or the return address and the donor's address to line up with a windowed envelope that we might put the giving statement in. For these emailed statements, we're not putting these in windowed envelopes, but we may have some printed contribution statements. Some folks may want to receive them on paper rather than by email. And if it were me, I'd like these two different delivery methods to deliver contribution statements that look the same. So I would probably use this alignment information to match up what I might have done with the printed statements, whether I've done that to line things up with a windowed envelope or whether I've done that to just make the report look nice, to make it appear attractive. For the emailed contribution statements, we also have the security tab. What this does is creates a password that people would need to use to open the attached PDF. Now, this would be the same password for all of the donors, but it does add a little extra security. If you don't want to use a password to protect the PDF, then just leave this field blank, and folks will just be able to open the attachment to the email and have their contribution statement that way. That pretty much covers everything with how to email contribution statements. Everything is really the same for the line format of the contribution statement. Really, the only difference between these two formats of the contribution statement is here on the Report tab, whereas this contribution statement format will present various funds or present the breakdown of contributions in columns. The contribution statement line format does that on each line of the report, and so I don't have this report columns box to use. That's everything that I had planned to cover. Again, I'm Dean Phelps. I'm the Director of Product Enhancement here. It's been my pleasure to work with you this afternoon, and hope to work with you again very soon. Thanks so much.